chilling shadows. The city's McDonald's was a common place for local inhabitants. It was a meeting point for families, friends, and students. No one could resist the temptation of a Big Mac, a McNuggets box, or crispy fries. But what nobody knew is that a dark secret was hidden under the family's surface of this restaurant. It was a cold winter night when Emily, a young university student, decided to go to the McDonald's after a long day of study in the library. His hunger was insatiable, and only good fries could satisfy her. He opened the restaurant door and entered, feeling the warm air of the interior that contrasted with the cold outside. The place was more busy than usual. The road to make the order extended to the door, and the sound of the conversation and the smell of delicious food filled the air. Emily joined the row, determined to wait to satisfy her voracious hunger. While waiting, he noticed a man sitting at one of the tables in the corner. He was alone, staring at his hamburger with an expression of face satisfaction. What caught Emily's attention was that the hamburger had a strange appearance. It seemed much bigger than normal and overflowed with ingredients. The meat overflowed with the edges, and the melted cheese dripped on the edge of the bread. Emily decided to ignore the hamburger and focus on her order. Finally, his turn came and asked for a McNuggets box and a large soda. While waiting for his food to give him his food, he could not help looking back towards the corner where the man and his monstrous hamburger was. However, the man was no longer there. The table was empty, and the restaurant seemed calmer than it had been before. They must have gone, Emily thought, trying to reduce the incident. He picked up his food and went to one of the tables next to the window. The rain hit the glass while Emily began to enjoy her McNuggets. They were delicious, as always, but I couldn't stop thinking about the strange hamburger he had seen. While ate, Emily noticed that the restaurant was empty quickly. Most people seemed to have finished their food and were leaving. Emily found this a bit strange, but decided not to give importance and continued with her dinner. When his food finished, Emily went to the bathroom before returning home. While walking to the bathroom, he noticed something unusual. The floor was sticky and humid, as if someone had shed a lot of liquid. He looked around and saw that the trail of fluid led to men's bathroom. It must have been an accident, Emily thought as he entered the women's bathroom. But what he found inside left her breath. There were blood stains on the floor and walls. The sink water was dyed red, and the mirror had bloody hands. Emily backed up horrified and ran out of the bathroom. Before he could alert someone, he noticed that the restaurant was completely empty. The main door was open, and the sound of the rain hitting the ground was the only thing that was heard. He thought about running, but stopped when he heard a noise from the kitchen. It was a soft sound, an unintelligible murmur. Emily approached caution at the entrance of the kitchen and looked inside. What he saw left her breath. The kitchen was full of people, or at least what seemed to be people. They were standing around the great kitchen plate, and each of them held a giant hamburger in their hand. The meat overflowed with the edges, the melted cheese dripped on the bread, and the ingredients spilled on the work tables. Emily went back, horrified. People in the kitchen did not seem to notice their presence. They kept preparing hamburgers and laughing among them. But their laughs were spooky, as if they were just a facade. Without knowing what else to do, Emily ran out of the restaurant. He ran down the street soaked by the rain, without looking back. When he finally came home, he was trembling and soaked. That night, Emily could not fall asleep. The memory of the blood in the bathroom and the strange people in the kitchen tormented it. He wondered if what he had seen was real or if it had been a hallucination caused by his hunger and fatigue. The next day, Emily decided to return to the McDonald's to investigate what had happened. But when he arrived at the place, he found a surprise. The restaurant had completely disappeared. The building where it used to be now was an empty space, as if it had never existed. No one else seemed to remember the McDonald's, and when Emily asked the people of the city, most looked at her confusion. No one had seen or heard about the place before. Emily began to feel she was losing her right. Over time, Emily stopped mentioning the strange experience of others. He began to doubt herself and wonder if everything had been an illusion. But he could never forget the sound of spooky laughter in the kitchen and giant hamburgers that people prepared there. Emily's story became an urban legend in the city. People began to refer to the McDonald's missing as the Feast of the Hungry, and some said it was a damn place. Where as the months passed, Emily felt increasingly isolated and desperate. No one seemed to understand what he had experienced, and began to question his own sanity. His academic life began to deteriorate, and his friends moved away from her, thinking that she was obsessed with the history of the McDonald's missing. One night, while navigating the internet in search of answers, Emily found an online forum dedicated to conspiracy theories and paranormal phenomena. He decided to share his story there, hoping that someone could understand what he had seen. To his surprise, he received responses from people who had had similar experiences. Some had seen the missing restaurant, while others had had encounters with masked strange ones that warned them of fast food dangers. It seemed that Emily was not alone in her experience, and there was a group of people who shared their fears and doubts. Together, they began investigating the McDonald's missing. They gathered information about the exact location of the restaurant and searched in the city's historical archives. They discovered that, in effect, there had been a McDonald's in that location in the past, but had closed abruptly in the 1990s due to public health problems. The investigation led them to discover even more disturbing details. There were reports from people who had mysteriously disappeared after visiting the McDonald's, and some claimed to have seen strange shadows walked by the area. They even found an old newspaper article that reported a blood incident in the restaurant's bathroom, similar to the one that Emily had witnessed. As they deepened in the history of the place, Emily and his group began to believe that the McDonald's missing was linked to a series of inexplicable events. Some thought the restaurant was a portal to another dimension, while others believed it was related to secret scientific experiments. They decided to make an expedition to investigate more thoroughly. They carried flashlights, cameras, and voice recorders and headed to the place where the restaurant used to be. When they arrived there, they were surprised to find an abandoned and ruined structure that seemed to have been there for years. While they explored the place, they found remains of broken tables and chairs, as well as broken window glass. The structure was covered with graffiti and was in a state of total abandonment. They wondered if they had reached the right place, since there were no signs that it had ever been a McDonald's. However, while investigating the interior of the building, Emily felt a feeling of familiarity. Despite devastation and decline, he recognized the disposition of the tables and cooking areas. It was as if they were in the same place where she had seen people preparing giant hamburgers. It was then that they heard a chilling sound, as distorted laughs and murmurs, which seemed to come from nothing. The lights began to blink, and the shadows moved around them. Emily and his group looked at each other with fear, not knowing what to do. Suddenly, a high and masked figure emerged from the shadows. He wore a clown mask that hid his face, and his eyes shone with an inhuman light. He approached them slowly, laughing disturbingly. "Welcome again!" he exclaimed, the figure with a laugh that resonated in Emily's ears and his group. Terrified, they ran towards the exit, but they found themselves trapped in a maze of dark halls and doors that closed for themselves. The masked figure pursued them, laughing and mocking them as they advanced by the dark and twisted maze of the old McDonald's. Finally, after what seemed an eternity, they managed to leave the building in ruins. They ran to their cars and moved away at full speed, leaving behind the nightmare they had experienced. Since that day, Emily and his group never spoke again of the McDonald's missing. The experience had marked them deeply, and they were convinced that the place was cursed and that they had to keep it a secret to protecting others from their terrifying power. The legend of the disappeared McDonald's became a horror story that was transmitted from mouth to mouth in the city. People said that the place was delighted by lost souls and that no one who entered there could escape. The abandoned restaurant became a taboo place, and most people avoided it at all costs. Emily was never the same again after her encounter at the McDonald's missing. The experience pursued her in her nightmares and made her doubt reality. Despite all research and conspiracy theories, he could never completely understand what had happened in that place. For her, the McDonald's missing remained a dark and scary mystery that would never be completely resolved. Thanks for watching the video. Subscribe for more horror and mystery stories.